Carla, I believe we are ready. Over to you.
Okay, thanks so much, Russ, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to FGDLA's Government Learning and Technology Symposium Series. I'm Dr. Carla Lane. I'm the Vice President for the Higher Education Sector for FGDLA, along with Russ Colbert, who's got kind of a sore throat, so he's not going to be saying too much today. Sounds like I shouldn't either. But Russ is the FGDLA Vice President for the Corporate Sector. FGDLA is a nonprofit professional association formed to promote the development and the application of distance learning in the federal government. We actively foster collaboration and understanding among those involved in leveraging technology and instructional media in support of the education and training needs of the federal government. Our membership is derived primarily from individuals employed by the agencies within the federal government. We invite you to join with us in this exciting field. You'll find the forms to do this at fgdla.us. For upcoming events, just a couple left for this year, but we're planning a lot of things for next year. On November 13th, DAU's Brenda Sedilak will identify instructional strategies for great webinars for producers and program managers, and we'll be presenting the FGDLA Awards on December 4th. So we hope you'll join us for both of those online events. We are so proud that Zoom and Moodle have become such valued sponsors for FGDLA. They've been instrumental in helping us present the webinars. COSO Cloud has become a new sponsor for FGDLA. It's a leading provider of secure, customized e-learning solutions for the government and enterprise sectors. Joining forces with COSO Cloud enables FGDLA to continue providing these great webinars, and we appreciate that so very much. We are so honored to have such a wonderful sponsors. We think they are the best. So today's webinar is actually a workshop. It's about gamified learning design using generative artificial intelligence. We'll focus on gamification principles, discuss AI capabilities for design and development, and review ethical considerations. Your guide through this workshop is Dr. Jenny Varicchio, who is the Associate Director of Learning Management Strategy at United Healthcare. She has conducted research on the use of gaming for adult distance research in the workplace. She's also the publications chair for FGDLA. This workshop is 2 hours long. FGDLA offers certification for participation in the workshop and completing an assignment at the end of it. Dr. Varicchio will explain that process in more detail. Jenny, it's a pleasure to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Carla. Well, welcome everyone. As Carla mentioned, my name is Dr. Jenny Varicchio, and we're going to be discussing gamified learning design using AI, specifically in that generative AI space. This is going to be somewhat of a part 2 to my previous webinar in April, where we looked at performing analysis and creating instructional design strategies and plans using generative AI as an ideation tool. But today's workshop portion of the session is going to be a little different in that we're creating a gamified learning journey and a small prototype that you can leverage for initial testing in an instructional design project. So this is a virtual workshop, and as you're learning more about this gamified learning design and AI, you're going to have the opportunity to work along with me and help me design this prototype and journey as we're leveraging generative AI. So before we get started, I wanted to get to know a little bit more about all of you. So go ahead and get ready in the chat. I wanted to learn more about what do you like to start your day with as far as beverages go? If you had a magical beverage maker, it could be anything that your heart desires. What would it be? Coffee, tea, boba, juice, or just straight water? Please share in the chat what you enjoy. Wine. Dr. Pepper, coffee, chai tea, mushroom coffee. Okay, this is why I like to ask, because there's so many interesting things
for that.
Cuban coffee, very delicious. Black coffee, tea, latte is my favorite as well. Yum. Hey, thanks. And thanks for the quick responses there. This is good. Okay, great. Let's take a look at our agenda today. Okay, so we're going to start by kind of recapping what we learned about gamified learning and generative AI. I want to make sure we're all on the same page with that concept. We're going to look at the different ways that generative AI and gamified learning can be used in design. And then we're going to move on to the workshop portion where we're going to design and develop a gamified learning prototype and learning journey as well using generative AI. And then we'll wrap things up with a debrief, and we'll talk about that optional certification assignment in case you're interested in learning more and putting it to practice what we learned today. Okay, so let's go to our first section here, gamified learning and generative AI for learning design. In this section, we're going to start off with a look at gamification versus games-based learning. There's a nuanced difference I want to make sure that we're all aware of between those two terms. Then we'll talk about what it means to use gamified elements versus mechanics and how those elements and mechanics work together to create a gamified system of play. And then we'll discuss generative AI and how generative AI fits into that AI space as a whole. And we'll take a look at how gamified learning can be developed using AI, as well as some ethical considerations to keep in mind when using AI for learning. Okay. Get this over here to talk about gamification versus games-based learning. This is also going to cover serious games as well, but the two big ones that I want to make sure that we're covering is games-based learning versus gamification. You're going to hear that a lot through this session. So I'm going to play this video and we can learn a little bit more about the differences between the two. It's about 2 minutes long.
There are many different ways to make work and learning more fun and interesting. Gamification, game-based learning and serious games all have a role to play, but they're different, so it's important to understand the goals and objectives to make sure you can choose the right one for your target audience. Gamification is where you take a boring subject like learning or work and make it more interesting by adding game elements to it. Gamification is easy to do and doesn't cost a lot, so lots of companies and schools are using it to make work and studying more enjoyable. Games like Duolingo help to stimulate players to learn new languages while also giving them rewards to make it fun. Gamification can be a quick fix for making learning more interesting, but it might not work forever. Players might get bored of the same gamification techniques. And at the heart of it, it doesn't tackle why the learning was boring in the first place. Game-based learning is another way to make learning more interesting. It's when you use an existing game to teach a new skill or idea. These games usually have entertainment as their primary goal, but can be repurposed for learning. Games like Minecraft or the Assassin's Creed History Tour. It's a fun way to learn because you get to play a game and learn at the same time. But to use game-based learning, you need someone who can explain the link between what's happening in the game and what the player needs to learn. A serious game, though, is designed for a specific purpose: to train a new skill, to raise awareness, to change perceptions, and all elements of the game work towards that learning objective, with all of the game interactions driving towards achieving the goals. The goal of a serious game is to make the game itself so enjoyable that people will want to play it and learn while they do. This intrinsic motivation makes sure participants don't get bored easily and have fun while they're at it. Before we go into the work of making a serious game, we make sure that we understand the learning objectives and the target audience really well so that we can design the right game for them and advise you whether making a game is the right approach. If you want to learn more about how a serious game...
We don't need the sales pitch part, but what I want to call out there are a few really important topics. First, gamification are the game elements within a non-game environment. Games-based learning is leveraging a game for a learning event. And then that could include, under that umbrella, serious games where you have kind of a really focal skill set that you want to develop. And I do also want to call out here, so he's running a serious games business, so he's going to kind of veer you that direction. But gamification and games-based learning could be a solution in your organization, but it all does depend on what are your audience needs and what are the goals of your learning. So a gamification example that came to mind when I was watching this was a while back, LinkedIn had a problem with people not filling out their profile. They would put their name on there, maybe like their role, and then go on to do whatever, thinking they were done. And so there was a new goal in mind to set it up so that people would know to complete their entire profile and what that meant. And they simply added a gamified element of a progress bar. And so if I were to put my picture in, maybe my title and a little blurb about myself, it would say, okay, well, you're 20% complete. You have 80% more to go, which tells me in what we call a feedback loop, like, okay, I have 80% more. What does that mean? I have to look into this and start filling stuff out. And what they found was by adding that small gamification element with a quick feedback for the user, they were able to increase that progress overall. So the completion rates went up and the progress in general was higher and all that stuff. So that was a gamified element that was what I would call an extrinsic motivator, in the sense of, okay, I want to get from A to B. I want to finish my profile and then get out of here and go on with my day. And so just give me what I need and I can do that. And that's what that progress bar was working as. And that was fantastic for that specific goal for their large user audience. Now, another version of this would be games-based learning, where and maybe something of an intrinsic motivator would be, it would be set up so that I would want to stay there for a really long time and continue to practice a skill for a really, really long time. So what does that mean? How can you get someone to do that with a design strategy? That will also tie to, and what you were hearing in the video, your learner audience analysis, and again, the objectives of your learning goals. So my personal preferences are, I'm a huge book reader. I love books. I have to get to the end of the story. I'm a very curious person. I read memoirs, fiction, whatever. I have to get from beginning to end. It's just a thing. And with that, narrative component is a very commonly used thing with games-based learning. So if you have Assassin's Creed, for example, that he used a story that brings us back through history and you get to see the whole thing, and that might keep someone in that space longer, because it's not about going from A to B, it's about exploring the whole game or accomplishing something or winning something. There's more to it that creates an intrinsic motivation. And again, that's going to be tied to those preferences of your learning audience. So I just want to call out those two nuances. Okay, I think that was all I needed to cover for that one. Okay, oh yes, and again, that goes back to your strategic design approach, which we're going to talk more about in a bit. But first, what I want to go into next is our, there we go, game elements versus game mechanics. So I mentioned that progress bar as a game element. And when you're thinking about gamified learning, I want you to think of it as a system of play. So game mechanics are a set of game elements that are organized to make up a system of play. Now, to break that down a little bit, you have the game mechanics on the right-hand side here. You have a board, and the play pieces go a certain way. Maybe there's some dice, maybe there's some set of rules. All of those items work together to create a system of play. And then the elements make up the mechanics of play. So I have those little pieces. In and of themselves, elements are just little pieces. But if I put them on the board and I move them a certain way, that creates a system of play. So common game elements that you'll see in digital gamification often, this probably will be of no surprise to you, are badges, leaderboards, points, progress bars. All of those are elements that can become mechanics within a system of play for a user or player if you're just developing a game. Okay, so true, false, really quick, just want to make sure we're all on the same page. True or false, game elements and game mechanics don't need to be present to create a system of play. True or false? Go ahead and put your answer in the chat when you're ready. 2 falses so far. True. What do we think? Give you about 10 more seconds. Great. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your answers. So the answer is false. So game elements and game mechanics, they have to both be present and work together to create that system of play. So the answer is false. But just remember, those two things, 1 + 1 = 2, the elements and mechanics work together to create that system of play, that play experience when you're playing a game. All right, great job, team. So let's go ahead and move on to our next video here. This one's going to be a little different because it's a longer TED Talk. But I wanted to grab some important components here to talk about strategic design, especially when it comes to thinking about the motivation of your learners and having that learner-centered approach in your strategy. If you want to, I do recommend taking a look at this full video on your own. It's called The Super Mario Effect with Mark Rober. So let me go ahead and I'll play the first 2 minutes, and you're going to see me jump to get to the next point that's very pertinent for our session today.
About a year ago, I asked my YouTube followers to play a simple computer programming puzzle that I made with a buddy. The object of the puzzle was to get your car across the maze by arranging these code blocks that represent typical computer programming operations, such as if-else statements and while loops. Once you thought you had a good code, you would hit run, and your car would move based on the commands you had in the program. So I asked my YouTube followers to play it because I said I wanted to prove that anyone from any background could learn to code. 50,000 of them took the challenge and attempted the puzzle. But the truth was that I didn't actually care about proving that anyone could learn to code. What they didn't know is that we actually randomly served up 2 slightly different versions of the puzzle. In one version, if you hit run and you weren't successful, you didn't lose any of your starting 200 points. We showed you this message. However, in the other version, if you hit run, and again, you weren't successful, we showed this slightly different message, stating that you lost 5 points from your starting 200 points. That was the only difference. In one version, if you failed, we simply took away 5, no value in the real world, no one will ever see these, completely meaningless fake internet points. That minor difference is crucial to keep in mind for the results I'm about to show you from the 50,000 data points we collected. For those who were penalized for failed attempts, their success rate was around 52%. For those who were not penalized, their success rate was 68%. That statistically significant delta of 16% was really surprising and almost seemed too hard to believe until we looked at another piece of data that we collected, which was attempts to solve before finding success. It's shown in orange right here. So those who didn't see failing in a negative light nearly had 2.5 times more attempts to solve the puzzle. As a result, naturally, they saw more success and therefore learned more. So if you think about that and sort of unpack these results, the trick to learning more and having more success is finding the right way to frame the learning process. And this observation seemed really profound to me. It made me wonder, what if you just framed the learning process in such a way that you didn't concern yourself with failure? How much more successful could you be? How much more could you learn?
Okay, and then he goes on to apply this to his efforts. I want to, before I jump to the next portion of this video, wanted to highlight this isn't a prescriptive method by any means, but it does highlight that need for testing and building awareness of your audience and finding that balance between where the learner is getting the feedback that they need to keep trying, while also not feeling that they're at a complete loss due to failure. So it's enabling them to learn, and finding that balance in your gamified system will help promote that intrinsic motivation. So in this case, they were, in both cases, they were aware that something was done incorrectly, but how that was communicated to the learner was impactful in the sense that some people tried more, and then other people were just, they were done, ready to just go on to the next thing. So just something to keep in mind with strategic design. Let me jump to the next portion of this. I'm really excited to show you all.
One right there. And so like after that, I haven't even touched the board since. I'm like, I'm so done with it. And I really believe that if you reframe like the challenges, it can make all the difference. I have a simple thought experiment to sort of showcase this. Let's say I gave you a test and it had instructions on it that you would carry out. And to do that, it had sort of buttons like this. And the instructions would say something like push button 3 for 5 seconds, and then push button 6 for 1 second, then push buttons 3 and 5 for 6 seconds, and so on. And unless you carried out the instructions on page 1 exactly, you couldn't see the other 32 pages of the test. How much would I have to pay you to take that test for an hour? Now suppose I changed the word test here to game, and I rotated this. And for the input device, I shrunk the buttons and moved them here. And I gave it a cool paint job, and maybe different button styles. And then instead of using words, I represented the tasks you needed to accomplish visually like this. Note the output is the exact same. You have to push these buttons in a very specific manner to move on to the next page, or level, as it were. Now picture it's 1986. How much would you pay me to take this test, just for an hour? If you have a very bad imagination, here's a hint to the right answer. I know, I was there. That has to be the greatest YouTube clip of all time. So as a science YouTuber, sometimes I feel people have framed the act of learning science in a negative way. It's been taught poorly, so it feels scary to them. It feels something more like this. And my approach is to take the same physics lessons you might have hated and to try and sort of trick you into learning something through something cool. Basically to go from this to this. So for example, in this video, I made a hot tub.
I do recommend checking this out. Thank you so much, Carla, for sharing that in the chat. And then he has a ton of science videos too that are great. Did you notice when he showed the Nintendified version of that test, he said, how much would you have to pay me to test this for just an hour? Which I thought was really interesting and highlighted his intrinsic motivation in that space as someone who loves Super Mario. But if anyone told me, hey, you're gonna have to take this assessment, it's gonna be an hour or more, that would feel unbelievably daunting. But when it's flipped and the design strategy is changed, the intrinsic motivation came out and then it changed to, oh, is it just an hour? You know, so I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to highlight there. Okay, so that's gamified learning for you. Let's go ahead and move on to types of generative AI for gamified learning design and development. So let me go here. So artificial intelligence, starting at the tippy top of this. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is a term used for creating computer systems that can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as decision-making and problem-solving. Generative AI will fit under that umbrella, but I have another video to show you, which captures all of the capabilities and limitations of generative AI that I thought was a really good summary of what to keep in mind, and also defining this for you. So let me go ahead and play that now.
What exactly is generative AI? When new content is created by artificial intelligence, it's called generative AI. This could involve generating texts and images, as well as videos, music, or voices. To do this, you describe in a chat dialog box what you want the AI to create. This description is called a prompt. The generative AI tools provide answers to all sorts of questions, summarize complex information, and generate diverse ideas quickly. Depending on how they're used, they can create short stories, paintings, pieces of code, or even musical compositions. The foundation for this creation lies in large amounts of data that the AI system accesses to identify patterns and similarities. The content produced by the AI is new. It's often impressive and challenging to distinguish from things humans have made. Generative AI can also be misused. In so-called deep fakes, AI is utilized to produce images or videos that seem real. AI-generated texts are also tough to recognize as machine-made. Moreover, the AI can provide answers that sound correct but are actually incorrect. This is called hallucinating. The quality of what's created depends on both the quality of the data used and the quality of the prompts given. To effectively utilize generative AI, we need to learn how to guide the tools with meaningful prompts and use them thoughtfully. Generative AI holds immense potential and can help us in many ways, such as serving as a writing or learning partner. However, the AI should do the hard work, and humans should be responsible for the facts.
Touches a little bit on the ethics that we're going to look at in a moment.
What exactly?
So our next little quiz question here, all true, false today. True or false, all artificial intelligence is generative? True or false? No, false, false. Got some quick answers here. Good, false. That's correct. Yes, good job, everyone. Yes, generative AI is a subset of artificial intelligence, focuses on creating models and generating those new content items like we saw in the video here. That was text, images, music, using neural networking or deep learning. It also needs that prompt to know what to generate and then leverages that information from the networks and trillions of data points, which enable it to pull all the information together and generate new content, which we're going to see in our workshop portion of this session. Okay, great job, everybody. All right, so gamification has already been recognized as a very potentially powerful tactic to encourage learner engagement, as we saw in some of those videos, and also their motivation. Artificial intelligence can be used to take that to another level when implemented with gamification, both on the design side and for the learner experience side. So when you hear the term gamification AI, that's that integration of artificial intelligence technologies with the gamification strategies. So I want to go ahead and show you some examples that I saw of gamification AI using generative AI. So let me go ahead and get this to be smaller. Maybe I can move it over here. Oh, I can. Okay, good. All right, there we go. Okay, in this first one, let me get my windows all situated here. This is a medical training simulator, and I'm going to put the link in the chat so you can always take a look later if you're interested. Terrible multitasker, bear with me here. There we go. Okay, so this can generate various patient scenarios for a medical student to diagnose and treat. The virtual patient is powered by generative AI, and it can respond differently based on the learner's bedside manner, questions, examinations, treatment plans, creates a lot of different outcomes. So when you go into this site and click play now, I accept. I am not clinical, I'm non-medical. And then I just pick a case. I'll do a free one that's not too intense. Okay, so it gives me a case introduction. 68-year-old male finding word difficulty for about 3 weeks, smile symmetric, grip strength normal, blood pressure 165/70, and no stroke alert activation, direct to treatment room, and I can begin. And then this gives me a nice tutorial of like, where am I? What's happening? What's my goal? It communicates that from the front end, which is great for users. Patient tab gives me a tour of everything around here, starting with this like menu item here, and it walks through each of these items. I'm going to go through it quickly just for sake of time, but I shared that in the link, a link in the chat, just in case you wanted to take a look at this. That's probably is really interesting for those of you if you have a clinical background. Okay, I'm going to exit out of this. You have an AI, tutor AI here. You have a nurse. And this is something where you can investigate and kind of explore this space. There's hospital sounds. So I just wanted to show this as an example of something that when you work in this space, it will generate personalized learning and help you hone in your skills, in this case, as a clinical professional. So that's one quick example. Another one I want to take you to, exit out of this. Is in the human resources space. Let me get this other item over to you via chat. And this one's a little grumpy with all of the browsers except for Chrome. So if you play with this one, just be sure to open it in Chrome. Otherwise it gets all upset. Okay. So this is a human resources AI technology that can do a couple of things. There's sales negotiation simulation, and we're going to look at difficult conversations role play. And then that one, it's augmenting conflict resolution training. So an AI agent can be used to act as an antagonist in a simulated conflict scenario, providing realistic training grounds for employees. So the model can be prompted to mimic various conflict simulations, testing and honing an employee's conflict resolution skills in a controlled setting. So I'm going to go through a quick little thing to show you. And this is a bit of a rabbit hole, so I'm just going to go through like high level of this. So in the same way, it's giving me kind of an introduction of what's happening in this simulation.
Difficult Conversations Roleplay. In this simulation, you will be playing a manager navigating a difficult conversation or series of conversations with a specific individual, e.g., a team member, colleague, superior, or external stakeholder. Before we begin, what is your name? What type of organization do you work for? What is your position, e.g., sales, engineering, operations, and how large is your team?
So what this is doing, and we'll see this again when we do more generative AI playing around later, is it's helping you to write your prompt, and you'll be pulling in your personalized experience that you want additional training for. So in this case, you have, okay, there's going to be a conflict. I knew that going in when I clicked on this, but it's going to ask for a name. You don't have to give your exact name. You can give a fake name. And then what type of organization you work for to hone that in, what your position is, how large is your team. And then it'll continue to ask you a couple other things like, what kind of conflict do you want this to be? How hard do you want this to be as far as conflicts go? Do you want it to be kind of like a light conflict, or like this is really serious, like 1 to 5? So once you put all that in, this bot will go ahead and generate an actual conversation that you can play with. And it creates a conflict situation that really has no problems. Like there's no outcome that makes it negative. It's only a learning experience, and it's in a safe space. So this is something to play with. I haven't done the sales negotiation simulation, so if you get a full experience with that, let me know. So those are some examples, some generative AI pieces. Let me go ahead and go back to our presentation here. Okay. Bear with me as I multitask terribly. 1 second. There we go. Okay. All right. So those are some examples there of generative AI and learning design for the user experience side of it. So as you could see, that involves a diverse set of materials. There was simulations, there's interactive modules you can do. There's all kinds of stuff. And I do encourage you to continue to get out there on Google and the internet and explore, what's being created out there, what's available when it comes to gamification AI. Okay, last piece of this section before we jump into our workshop portion is ethical considerations. Wanted to share this quick video about the field of AI ethics. This field is huge, and it's a good reminder that when you're using artificial intelligence in your respective organizations, be sure to research and learn more about any ethical guides or governance teams that have been established within your groups. Not only can these teams guide you and provide you with guidance when using AI, but they might have some internal resources that you're not aware of that you can leverage in your learning design as well. So let me go ahead and share this with you. This will be our last video today.
AI ethics refers to the study and implementation of ethical principles, guidelines, and policies in the development and deployment of artificial intelligence technologies. As AI continues to advance and become more integrated into various aspects of society, ethical considerations become increasingly important to ensure that AI systems are developed and used responsibly, fairly, and transparently. Key aspects of AI ethics include Fairness and bias, addressing biases in AI algorithms to ensure fair and unbiased outcomes. This involves recognizing and mitigating biases that may be present in training data or algorithms to prevent discriminatory impacts on different groups. Transparency, promoting transparency in AI systems by making the decision-making processes of AI models more understandable and interpretable. This helps build trust and accountability among users and stakeholders. Accountability, establishing clear lines of responsibility for the development and deployment of AI systems. This includes accountability for the ethical implications and potential societal impacts of AI technologies. Privacy, ensuring that AI applications respect and protect individuals' privacy rights. This involves implementing measures to secure and handle personal data responsibly. Security, addressing the security implications of AI systems to prevent malicious use and potential vulnerabilities that could lead to harm. Informed consent, ensuring that users are adequately informed about the use and implications of AI technologies and obtaining their consent for data collection and processing. Robustness and reliability, developing AI systems that are robust, reliable, and resistant to adversarial attacks to avoid unintended consequences or malicious manipulation. Societal impact, assessing and considering the broader societal impacts of AI technologies, including their effects on employment, economic inequality, and social structures. Environmental sustainability, considering the environmental impact of AI systems, particularly energy consumption, and promoting sustainable practices in their development and deployment. Human-AI collaboration, encouraging the responsible integration of AI as a tool to augment human capabilities, fostering collaboration between AI systems and human users. AI governance, establishing frameworks and policies for the ethical use of AI, which may involve industry standards, regulations, and guidelines at national and international levels. AI ethics is an interdisciplinary field that involves collaboration among technologists, ethicists, policymakers, and other stakeholders to ensure that AI technologies align with human values and contribute positively to society. Various organizations, including governments, industry groups, and research institutions, are actively working on developing ethical guidelines and standards to guide the responsible development and deployment of AI. The goal is to strike a balance between innovation and ethical considerations to harness the benefits of AI while minimizing potential risks and harms.
Great.
Great.
There we go. Yes, I do agree, Christopher. That is a horrible voice and cadence. The information is fantastic, so I had to include it, but thanks for bearing with me on the sound there. So one thing is, this is a list of all of the items that were covered in that video. And what I really wanted to highlight here is there's a lot of different components when it comes to ethical considerations to keep in mind. So again, when leveraging AI for your projects, be sure to align yourself with your organization's policies and procedures. And again, they might have some really cool tools that they're working on or that could be internally available to you. Okay. Now, before we move on to our workshop section, I am curious, what were some things that have stood out to you so far? What have you found to be valuable or interesting? Go ahead and share in the chat. I'll give you a moment to think about it. Yeah, that was a great TED Talk. Agreed. Gamification defined. Fantastic. Yes. Yeah, complexity can get very complex. Yeah. Lots of options though. Understanding gamification. Good. I'm glad that was helpful. Great. All right. Thanks for sharing. Okay, good. Just want to do a spot check, see how everyone's doing. Okay. So we've discussed gamified learning design and generative AI, lots of components there, lots to unpack. So now we're going to look at how we can leverage generative AI for design prototyping and learning journeys. We're going to do that live. So let me go ahead and give you some context here. So this is the framework that we're going to be using for Gamified Design Plan. For those of you who were here in April, this will be familiar to you. This specific framework I find helpful because it helps me to plan for the end at the beginning, if that makes sense, so I can have a holistic view from the onset of the project. Your framework might end up looking a little bit different, and it all depends on what works best for you and your organization. But wanted to share this structure because it is quite handy when it comes to gamified learning design. So let's see here. So starting with phase 1, we have the preparation phase, which is the goals and objectives. That's a SMART goal and some objectives. Audience analysis, determining the learning delivery type and the target delivery date. So we're going to do a quick flyover of those in a moment. Then we have phase 2, which is the design and iteration plan, where we map out the learning journey, identify the gamified elements, establish guidelines and those feedback loops to make sure that that information is going back to the learner and they're staying on track with the learning goals, and also planning, testing, and iteration management. So today we're going to be focusing mainly on those 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. But when you're mapping out this plan for yourself, it is great to keep in mind what those phase 3 components are with the implementation. Thinking from the beginning, is there any support documentation that will be needed for this? Is there process procedures I should point the learners back to? What's my communication plan? And what's my identified target date? And then phase 4, thinking from the beginning, how am I going to evaluate that this learning is a success? What are the assessments that I'm going to use for the learners to check their knowledge and skills and whatever else we need to gather? And are there any enhancement plans in the future for enhancing the learning event itself? But we're going to stay in these 2 sections here for today. And I'm going to provide you first with a scenario. So our learning scenario is a government agency, the influx of new clients and projects at a bustling project management group. It's created a surge in demand for efficient project management. However, with the rapid expansion in the existing project management team, they find themselves completely overwhelmed, and they're struggling to keep up with deadlines and client expectations. And as a result, the projects are frequently delayed, and the stakeholder satisfaction is definitely on the decline. So recognizing the urgent need to address this issue, the agency's management decides to implement a comprehensive training program focused on project management techniques and tools. So you did some more research into the situation, we'll just say, for this scenario, and you built out a training needs analysis. You talked to all the stakeholders, you gathered this up, and you came to the conclusion that based on the assessment and findings and uncovering what's needed, it becomes evident that the prioritized initial training focus will be that the project management team lacks proficiency in using a new project management software effectively to set those realistic timelines and communicate those timelines effectively. Okay, so that's going to be our training needs analysis. That'll come back soon. Now we're going to go back to phase 1 with that training needs analysis and apply that, starting with the SMART goal and objectives. Now, as we're going along, when you're developing your learning events, you're going to notice that as you define your goals and objectives, you have your audience analysis, you do all these things, you start testing it out against your learner journey. This is going to become kind of an iterative cycle. I wanted to call that out. You'll see that in this session today because you'll want to build that into your project plan as well from timeline perspective. Give yourself that buffer to add in the extra testing time and all of that stuff. So I want to make sure this is the beginning of the iteration. We're going to take our needs analysis and start building our goal first. So let me go ahead and bring this out. It's good to go. Okay. Bring this over here. Oh, no, I needed that one. Excuse me. 1 second. Move us into the workshop view here. Oop. Okay. There we go. Okay. All right. So we have our training need. Let me go ahead and grab that. What I'm going to do first is as we've done, yes, a gap analysis would be wonderful. Jolly, yes, that could be another webinar actually. All right. So with our training needs analysis, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put this into ChatGPT to create our SMART goal. Now, this is something we did in April. But what I wanted to do it again today because what it'll do is it'll give ChatGPT a context for what we're going to be building off of that, so we can get to that prototype within the same, training need. What I'm going to do is draft a SMART goal for a training event on the following needs analysis.
Screen might be a little small to read. Jenny, can you enlarge it at all?
See. Better?
Get rid of the down. Okay, yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's see how that goes. Okay, so what it's gathering is those SMART components, which is specific, measurable, achievable, actionable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So it's keeping that goal within that space, which works really, really well within an organization's training. So we have our SMART goal here. Now what I want to do is go to the next slide. Generated it very quickly. Is also go, oops, let me go here and add in draft learning objectives based on this SMART goal for the training event. So we have a draft of learning objectives so far here. We have software proficiency, setting realistic timelines, communicating those timelines effectively, application and implementation. Okay, so we're going to go with that for the sake of time. The next thing I'm going to do, because this is all kind of a recap of April on a better computer, so it's moving quicker. Let's see here. I'm going to ask for a learner persona. Now, a learner persona is used a lot of times in gamification and games-based learning as kind of like the a stand-in for the population of learners. So in this case, the average age of your learners is going to be 38 years old. What their basic, general roles will be. Let me try and make this bigger so you can actually see what I'm looking at. This is an example here. Their education level, skills and challenges, skills level, all of that. What the learner persona is doing is capturing kind of that general idea of your audience. And this is something that you may have to iterate on. Speaking of that iteration circle, as you're testing, you might learn more about your audience and that might change your learner persona. So this is something where you can start drafting in ChatGPT, but remember as the designer to continue to keep that in check. So let me go ahead and say draft. I don't know how to get rid of this.
So do you feed that
Huh?
So do you feed that learner component to ChatGPT so it's using that as a basis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in this case,
you create it based on your own organization. That's
you
all I'm
can,
looking at. Okay. And then how does it use it?
yeah, so totally up to you in this case, because you can use it as an ideation tool, where in this case, we're going to do that, where I'm going to say, hey, draft a learner persona based on this training event. And you can gather information about your organization with stakeholders and leaders that are really, tied to those learners. And you can use this as an ideation tool to work with them. If you have a template of your own, you can gather that as well and use that instead. But this is something that it'll take a guess, as it were, based on what it knows so far and what's in its data system. And it creates that learner persona for you. And again, this is something to fully edit on your own. Make sure that you're checking it with your prototyping and your testing and with your stakeholders for sure. So we'll take a quick look at this. For this learner persona, we have Alex Thompson, project manager, 5 years of experience, 2 years in the current role. demographics information here. What their typical goals and motivations are, just based on guessing in the system. We have professional growth, efficiency and effectiveness, and job performance. Challenges and pain points could be that software proficiency. So this is based off that needs analysis and it's building there. Realistic timelines and communication of timelines. Preferred learning style. And preferred training resources. So that's some really kind of great ideas to, at least from that, again, that ideation perspective on your training strategy and design strategy. You could probably leverage this as a beginning for your tests.
So you could delete information from that, or you could add information.
Yeah, you could say, I can't delete directly from here, but I can say rewrite this to make this for more of a higher level, like someone with more experience, or someone within X role, and you could have it continue to redraft and revise it. And
is it that useful, Jenny, to be this specific about, I'll say, for example, the age? And I mean, if you're going to a much larger group of people, say if you took United and United Healthcare, and said we have people who are from 18 to 70, 75 years old, would it be able to differentiate, do you think, at that point? Or is it important to
for
make
United, yeah, and that's a great question, because it does become very subjective to your organization. I think for United, the demographic information that would be valuable for that organization would be the background. Are they clinical? Are they compliance? Are they call center? And also maybe their education level could be a component depending on what the training was focused on. And definitely their current role and experience, that might be another component as well to take into those larger groups. When it comes to age, that's something that may or may not be valuable. It kind of just depends on what that learner group is. I know with United, if they're doing, clinical training for members, if it's members facing and it's for women who are looking to have children, and they, that might be in a specific age range, or it may be retirees, or those kinds of things may have those age components to keep in mind. But yeah, it is a very subjective thing. So again, that would be where it's so important to read through what's generated and continue to think, how does this align with what I need to do with my group and where my conversations with the stakeholders and organization? Does that help?
The more specific that you can be, the better the design would be, the more fit it would be for that particular group. But if you've got a much larger group, if you've got Healthcare 101, then you're going to spread out things a lot more, and it's going to be more difficult for ChatGPT to really hone in on the very specifics of it. But still, it's a start. It's different than I've got to sit down and write all this myself.
Yeah. And I find in those things when it's a huge training, like if it's for thousands of people at once, basic design with light gamification can be a good way to go. So like we were saying with LinkedIn and the adding one progress bar, like that kind of thing can make all the difference that you need without having to overcomplicate it. And then it still appeals to the large audience as well. So yep, that's a different kind of audience analysis in the sense of thinking of the size of the learner group is a huge component to a strategy as well.
It could lead you to branching, and saying this particular group needs something a little different, but there's a core amount of material that you're giving to everyone.
Yeah, and you can have it as you go in and have it revise to that. Say, hey, rewrite this so the audience is for like a huge group, and it has to be simple, simplified. And so it might modify this a bit. I'm going to keep it this way for today just because of the context of where we're going. But yeah, you can continue to have it rewrite as needed.
Just the final point is that the prompt engineering is one of the most important components of working with this. The second most important is read what it gives you and edit it.
Correct. Yes, I agree. Yes. Yes, Jana, you could copy and paste the learner persona from your organization into the ChatGPT and have it and then apply the AI goals, depending on, you want to play with it. So it's aware of that training goal. So going back to what Carla just said about the importance of the prompt. So if you have the training goal included, you put in the learner persona and then you start working on the objectives and starting to play with it that way. That is another method of ideation that you can use for your design strategy as well. Only thing is, if you're copying and pasting something that is private to your organization, make sure that it's okay. So you want to check with those governance groups and to see what, if you are using an outside source like ChatGPT, make sure that that's okay to use with your group, I would say, just to be safe. But if they have an internal tool, then go for it. Okay.
As of what it would take that
Mhm.
very private piece and add it to the large language model. That's
Yeah, exactly. Where you gotta be careful. But there are a lot of great governance groups out there and internal generative tools nowadays. So yeah, explore the space to see what's available in your group. Be sure to ask and check the procedures. But theoretically, yes, that capability is there. You can do that. Okay. That's audience analysis. Okay, delivery type. So what we're going to do today is not self-paced. We're going to do a blended learning. So what I'm going to do here is show you how you can just work that into this thing. So I'm going to start with creating well, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say that we're going to do blended learning, and I'm going to work that into our learner journey, which we're going to look at in just a second here. Go ahead and adjust this. Before we go out there, because this will be kind of played into the same prompt, we have just completed our preparation. So we did a flyover of that. Oops, there we go. Now we're going to do our learner journey. And a learner journey is the learner's experience from the beginning to the end of the training event. It's a map of that gamified system and what it looks like from how it's going to enable the learner to accomplish their objectives, allow them to reach that learning goal. It helps you to make sure that everything that's included in the training is honing, circling back to that learning goal. So everything's kind of aligned and there isn't a scope creep to your design strategy. And in a gamified learning environment, the learners are also going to face different kinds of challenges and obstacles, which will prompt them ideally to have some time for reflection and feedback and enhance their understanding. So a little bit different than some other instructional design approaches with gamification is that your learner groups can have high levels of frustration and high levels of celebration when it comes to accomplishing something, and that can drive their motivations. So that again underscores that importance of that audience analysis, making sure that your design is catering to that learner, and planning that from an in-depth perspective from the beginning. Okay, so all that to say, I'm going to ask this to generate a learner journey. Draft a learner journey of this training event for a blended learning. Okay. Sorry, guys. In a blended training event format. Okay, so while it's doing that, I want to quickly show you a couple of things. When you make a learning journey and you have a group of people that you're working with in your project, there are going to be, if I can get this to the next slide, lots of components. And so as you can see here, when you're trying to communicate a learner journey, I've run into this before where you want to make sure they can see the whole story, but it can look like this. And this is very difficult to read. It's complicated. So what I would recommend is taking your learner journey and keeping it as high level as you can for folks. So this is the same learner journey example, but trying to keep it high level for people to see the steps, the stages in this case, and the objectives. And those objectives can tie right back to your learner goals. So keeping that in mind when you're communicating your learner journey, and you can have ChatGPT help you with this. So in this case, with our example here, we have a pre-training, we have a live training event here, and then with like sessions and things like that, and a post-training for 1 to 3 months, and that seems like a long time. So what I'm going to do is ask it, rewrite this training event to be a training journey, learner journey. To be 3 weeks long first. As you can see, it's going through week 1. This is another thing you can check with your stakeholders. How long do they have to learn? What is the expectation there? Okay, and then I'm going to ask it, once it's done.
Can you ask it to give you an idea of how long it would take to do something?
Yes, yes. I'm going to do one more quick. Yes, I'll do that right after this. Rewrite this learner journey to in a high level format for stakeholder communication. As you can see, the prompts, this is again, the more information and structure you can give it, the better. So we'll see how this goes. It is quite the experiment.
I think the point, though, is that you build it. You start out with the basics and then you keep adding to it. And because you can't give it a prompt that says, do all of these things that you've given it and all these other prompts. You can't start out with that because it probably will not give you the information that you want.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be pretty limited. So yeah, as it can continue to build off the context of the different things you're adding, yeah, it's kind of like a partner and tool versus.
Yeah, it is. And I like what you said, while it's doing that, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Yes.
A very
I do think
important
it's fine.
concept because
Yeah.
one of the reasons you're doing this is really to save time. But if this thing is hallucinating, then
Yeah.
you got to look at it and read through it and make sure that what's there is what you want and that it hasn't left out something. It certainly gives you plenty of information, but you don't know until you really read through it that it's addressed everything that you want in it. So you do have to insert yourself into the planning and the instructional strategies for it.
Yeah, I agree. So in here, Carla, to your question, here's a look at its guess essentially at design time for needs analysis, content design. And again, really important, read through it. Is there something that you would do differently in your design processes on your teams? This is just something to get started with.
What do you think about the time estimates? Do they seem reasonable to you for what you wanted?
So far, so good. This might be a little bit light, but it depends.
Jan has got a question in the chat. She's asking are you using the Pro version? And if so, is it remarkably better or worth it than the free version?
I think this is the Pro. I think so. I think this is the Pro. I'm not noticing a huge difference in the ChatGPT side because I am just doing text and keeping it simple. But when we go into the other generators that we're going to look at, that's where it's nice to have and explore. So for like different visuals and videos and stuff like that, that can be fun. But again, it totally depends on what you need as a designer. But for quick text ideation like this, I think the free one is like, good to go.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe that is good. I don't know.
Well, to develop an entire course, 93 hours seems minimal.
It does. Yeah, it's optimistic.
Yeah.
Oh,
Never worked with a design team that I worked on, I can tell you that. So
yeah, it is subjective. Know your team, know your people. Yep. Yeah. So that's something, but it can help you draft. That's a plus. Very optimistic. Okay, we're kind of all on the same page here. That's funny. Okay. All right. So that's kind of some ideas here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this learner journey.
Okay. Just
Read.
looking at your time, you got about 55 minutes late, so or left. So make sure that you're
Oh, we're good. Yeah.
enough time. I'm not trying to slow you down.
No, it's fine. This is good. Gamified learning elements. We're going to put in those elements. All right. And I'd like to throw it back to the chat. What gamification elements are you seeing here? Badges. Yes. Badges. I'm gonna scroll through real slow. What else? Story. Yes. There's also these. Quest. Yes. Collaboration, hands-on, skills challenges. Yes, challenges. Yes. Role play. Yes. You all know your game elements. That's fantastic. Anything else? Let's say, I think I would add in leaderboard and achievement wall in this case. There are extrinsic and extrinsic. Yes, those are the motivators that come from the play itself. Yes. Okay, fantastic. Great job. Okay, wanted to get that awareness going. As you practice, you become more familiar with these. You'll start seeing elements all over the place, and you'll see them in regular life as well. Okay. So
I
next
like
thing,
it's adding in some more traditional things, discussions and so forth. So it's a nice combination.
what was that, Carla? Sorry, broke up a little bit.
It's adding in things such as discussions, so more traditional ways of learning so that people are still comfortable, I think, with some of that as opposed to everything is new or different. I think at some point we'll get to the point where we're really very comfortable with all sorts of gamification. But I think still important to exercise some of the old things as well.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, that does bridge it over a little bit. Yeah, it's a great point. Yes. Okay, great. So I'm going to flip this a little bit. And another thing that you can do, this isn't as common, but you can continue to have it modify the learner journey for your gamification needs. And I'm going to do something a little bit wild here and just say, rewrite the learner journey to include a gamified space theme. I wanted to highlight how quickly it can just do that if you needed to have some kind of theme, or have it be for a specific professional environment, or for some project that you want that's a type of that has a type of feel to it, maybe like a system implementation project or something like that. I'm glad you like the sci-fi theme, so I'm gonna do that today because that'll generate more fun visuals later. But anyway, so let's look at how it can, it changes everything too. So you have starship readiness, astro quests, crew mission briefing, let's see, control center simulator, that kind of thing, which can be fun if you just need to mix it up with a small team as well. So this is just kind of a look at that kind of output there. And then,
If you wanted to revert to what you had before, can it do that?
yes. I'm going to keep it like this though for the visuals. But I'm just gonna, but
Yeah,
you can say, hey, can you modify this for a or rewrite for a professional setting, non-space themed, again, going back to that, be very specific in your prompt and it'll rewrite whatever you need. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So yes, info based on the previous input. You're limited to a number of prompts in the free version. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Thank you, Christopher. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to grab a very small component of this to build and draft a prototype using generative AI. And to keep it easy and for the sake of time, we're going to just grab what we can turn into a quiz element. So let's see here. I think I'll just do a time management quiz. Okay, this one. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to Control C to copy it. And then I'm going to ask it to create create one, keep it simple, multiple choice scenario question based on this part of the learner journey. And then I'm going to go Control V. And we'll see what it spits out. Let's see here. All right. So we're going to take this and play with it in a second. I want to talk about really quickly is your iteration planning. There are 3 main things to keep in mind when you're getting ready for your iteration. And first is to have your learner journey. And then as you're going through, being able to take out those components that can be prototyped and testing your prototypes. So first is once we get those pieces out, so that could be a quiz, that could be some kind of interaction. As you're building these out, think of those modules that you can pull out, that you can test. The smaller, the simpler, the better. And once you have those, you'll want to define, step 1, define your testing objectives. What are those key metrics to determine what success looks like for your gamified design? And that can help you identify what those modules are. The metrics could include things like user engagement, completion rates, user satisfaction, skills improvement. Set goals around those metrics, and then outline the specific goals for those testing phases, such as look at the game mechanics. Are they effective? Is the user interface, the intuitiveness of it, is that looking good? If I were to hand it to a user and say, okay, and I don't say anything, are they able to get from A to B as expected or not? Or do they go to F? So testing that out for that intuitiveness, and also start assessing, and this might come later down the line as you get something a little bit more built out. Do the elements and mechanics, the way everything's set up, is that system of play actually motivating and engaging the learners? Do they look bored? So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then lastly, select your test participants. And this also may change through your project. Initially, like with this kind of thing here, it may just be within the design team that you test, or maybe a small group of stakeholders. And then later towards the end, maybe you're doing user testing with a small group of the actual learners, if that's available to you. So defining those testing objectives, mapping that out, again, starting at the beginning, mapping it out holistically is going to be really helpful for you. So you can also work that into your time frames and adjust accordingly. Then conduct your user testing, provide whatever brief overview you can, and then allow them to just go for it. Let the users play with it, and then observe that natural user behavior. That is going to be something that's going to really highlight where your expectations and preferences lie versus where your audience's expectations and preferences lie. And that's going to be the most important part of your prototype, because you might see like, okay, when I use this, I would go from, A to B every time. No problem. This looks super intuitive to me. And then you'll hand it to someone else and they'll go a totally different direction. And that is a very normal experience. So just don't get married to your design, keep it simple, and let them, give them as minimum information as possible, enough so they can get started and use it, but then take a step back and observe as much as you can. And then gather that feedback by observing them, interviewing, surveys, whatever you need to get to measure the data that you need. And then step 3, analyze the results and iterate, review your feedback, refine the prototype, and retest as needed. Okay. So that is just top 3 things: define your testing objectives, conduct your user testing, analyze those results, and iterate.
In
Okay.
some places that would be called evaluation and return on investment.
Yes. Very important for everybody. Okay. All right. So we have our quiz. So, in scenario question that was generated really quickly was a space communication relay. Alex is tasked with updating that project timeline to reflect a 2-week delay in the delivery of key materials. The client has expressed concerns about how this delay will affect the overall project completion date. Alex needs to communicate this update clearly and effectively to manage expectations. Okay, what is the best response? We have these 4 options. Okay. And let's say if you don't like it even, and you want to just maybe make another version of this, draft. It'll take the context that it had before. I can say draft another question based on this part of the learner journey.
It's
And then
interesting
it'll
that
say,
it still thinks in context, so it has its own context and it carries it with it. You don't have
yes,
to keep explaining it to it, so long as
exactly.
you use the right prompts.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I wanted to capture there. And you'll see even with the learner persona that we created earlier, it was Alex was the learner. So it'll pull all of that in and continue to generate, which is kind of interesting. Okay. All right. Any questions on that so far? I'll take a break. Any variations of the prompt that you'd like to see for this quiz scenario? Give it a few seconds. Can I change the style? Yes, I can. Do we still want to do? Oh, yes, the question style. Yes. No worries. No worries. Okay, do you want to? I can make it.
Automatic correct never kicks in when you want it to, does
I
it?
know. Let's see, what's another? So another multiple choice style, another. Okay.
It's getting worse as it goes along.
Non-story. Okay. Rewrite this question and remove the scenario component. I'll try that, see what happens. There you go. Go ahead and ready that initial story. And now we're just going to Alex needing to communicate a 2-week delay. And let's say I look at this and these answers are pretty lengthy. You can also ask it to simplify that kind of stuff too. So rewrite to simplify the answers.
Could you also say simplify answers so that they're no longer than 5 words?
Yes. Simplify the answers so they are no longer than 5 words. There we go. And again, you'll have to read them, edit as needed, but it does allow you to kind of see things really quickly as you're kind of prototyping with yourself a little bit here, where you're looking at different ways to communicate. How would this work with the learner? Will it fit in my storyline, or will this be an immense amounts of text if you're working in something like storyline? So this is something you can continue to play with and ideate on. Okay, so we're doing good on time. Thank goodness. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do, we've iterated quite a bit on one quiz question, which is fantastic. We've created a scenario. Now there's another option where we can create some images that could maybe bring the learner in. So let's see. So images can be quite a powerful tool in learning. I'm going to pull in the space thing only because it'll help with the image creation. And I have a goal of that here. Let's see here. For this one. I'm going to go over to this image generator. And this is available in ChatGPT as well. There's a whole bunch of different types of image generators. So please explore. We're just going to use this one today just so you can see what it's like. I'm going to say create 3 images for the following quiz question for a project management training. Now this one I had to create a little bit more context to because it's not going to read off of what I put into ChatGPT, and it's going to take a moment to create some images. While that's going, one thing to keep in mind with image generation, depending on what you choose, is you have to, this is going to sound very strange, but oh good, I'm seeing a perfect example. You have to check for hallucinations. I would say image generation is not as advanced as text generation. So in this case, when I look here, I see this guy has legs. There's some lady's legs, but no lady, stuff like that. Can everyone see that? Half body people, yes. Extra fingers. Please count count toes and fingers, look at everything. Also look at the text. Project time icon, things like that. So this is there's a lot of interesting things. 20-week delay, 2-week delay. I mean, it's all over the place. If you have Photoshop, great. Yeah, this looks like someone's out in the bushes behind the field. Yeah, so things to keep in mind. But it's really cool as in the sense of you can create some neat stuff. So make these images face theme.
You're right, Michael. A for effort.
Yeah, just a heads up, it's
Kind
getting
of.
there.
They're having a leg.
It's a little interesting. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so this may be time dine. It's a new word. Um, things just to keep in mind. Yeah, so that's a good example of hallucinations. I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's image generation. Copyright considerations. That's a great call. I do like to call out, like in a small, this was generated with AI, right? AI generated using ChatGPT. So I just call out where I did it, just in case. But I don't know, Carla, if you're more familiar with any kind of copyright call outs for that.
No, I think you're right that the main thing is you would, put a note at the bottom of a slide or page, whatever it is you're creating, just saying this image was created by AI, or maybe give credit to whatever program you were using for AI, since there are
Yeah.
many, not just ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I don't think APA has come out with much more than that at
Okay.
this point. So, I mean, if you're using your own in-house generated large language model, I think then you would credit that. So it's like anything else that you do with references. You just make sure that you're giving credit where credit is due, and you're not taking credit for having drawn something or created a photograph of it or whatever. You're just making sure people understand what they're looking at.
That makes sense. Okay, great. Good question. Okay. Oh, did it go away? It went away. Oh, goodness gracious. Trinidad Sparkle. There we go. Okay. Ugh. All right. So the last thing I want to do, we created some images. Those can be added into your prototype and they're quickly, you can develop them quickly. Again, look for hallucinations. But if you're just throwing together a mock-up, that can be, that can be an okay thing. But for your final product, be sure to check everything, do a quality check on your work. And then the last thing, this is possible today. That's a note for myself. We're going to look at video generation as well. And this is kind of a cool thing when it comes to gamified learning. You can use, and I've seen people do this before, when they do a serious game or a games-based learning, they can put together a trailer for their learning as a promotional item. So if someone's trying to do something really exciting, like, hey, let's check for our safe emails or some kind of compliance training that no one usually wants to take, but we've gamified it. There's trailers that people can put together of the training to make it kind of exciting and take them into the narrative. Another thing that you can do with this is came to mind was when creating these scenarios. Let's say if you're in that learning event and you're working through questions, let's say you get 3 right, then you go into a cutscene, and that can work as kind of a, especially if you're like narrative driven like I am, that can be kind of a, oh cool, like I just got to the next level. This unlocked something. And that can build into your intrinsic motivation as well, while also letting the learner know from a feedback loop perspective, hey, you did it, that's correct, you're on the right path, versus like, try again, keep trying, and then you get to that cutscene later and you realize, wow, this is worth the reward in, again, depending on your audience. But this can be used for a couple of different things. Create a picture using a picture for reference. I
So
don't
the
know.
Mona Lisa dressed up as an astronaut.
Yeah, like yeah. Would it be like, okay, let's see. I'll go into that really quick just because we have time.
So who do you credit for that?
Yeah, that's a good thing to ask your ethics board.
You would have to credit the original oil. So you would do that, and then you would reference whatever AI program you use to generate the picture. So you would have 2 references for that.
That makes sense. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Really wanted to see her in a helmet, didn't you?
Well, and I can say, I don't think I put as another prompt engineering issue, make her an astronaut. Let's see how this goes. Astronaut.
Yeah, Jenna, you're right. It is a rabbit hole, but I can't help myself.
Yep, sorry. I'll go back to my thing right after this one, I promise.
I mean,
But
when
it's
you,
interesting
when you
to
start playing
explore.
around with this stuff, I mean, there you go. Perfect.
There we go. Okay. So yes, to answer your question, you can do a picture with a picture in that case.
Okay, I'm going to my room now.
And I'm guessing with the attachments, you can build off of that as well. So you could probably modify images that you have. I haven't tried that yet, but I'm guessing that's something you can do. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our video generation. Oh, let me go back and get my.
You still got about 30 minutes left.
Oh, good. Yeah, this should be done before then. Okay. I'm going to pull this in, Control C, take it over to Veed, our video generation, create a video for the following space themed gamified learning scenario multiple choice questions. I'm trying to rack my brain of all the things it needs to know. In a yeah, let me just do that to start so you can see the other things it's going to ask in a moment. Okay, I gathered everything. I'll put it in here. So again, there's a whole bunch of different video generators. This one I liked. Now this one's kind of great because with video, of course, there's going to be some more additional elements and it's going to ask you for a little bit more context and what's the primary message? Well, who's the target audience? What's the tone or mood? And then how long would you like it to be? So those are some components it needs to generate this video. I'm going to say primary message. Okay, actually, I can just put it into sentence format. I don't have to do the letters or numbers. Primary message is to communicate or to train. Let's see. To train project managers to communicate timelines effectively, we'll say. The target audience is project managers in a training event. Sorry about that. Training event. The tone and mood is professional and positive. And then the video should be 1 minute. Okay. Yeah, might be a little too long, but whatever. Okay, so I'm going to have that generate. It's going to give me a script first. So you can always read through the script. Okay. Right, and we'll say that it aligns with the vision. To continue. Give it a moment to think here. Okay. More surveys. All right, so I'm going to click here to edit and view my video. So it'll take me out to the bead site. I'll click generate video.
Isn't it nice to live in this century?
Yeah, it's interesting. All these different things that are being created now. Adding some audio now. I like
Been
this.
a video producer for years, and so suddenly this thing is creating a video as we sit here and chat about creating a video.
Yeah. And it's great because if you're prototyping, you're trying to communicate all these things in your head to an audience, and it's just this little bit, and a video can like really make that come to life without a ton of explanation, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you can use it as a storyboarding
Mhm.
piece. There's so many things that you can do with it that really cuts down on your production time. I mean, that's where so much of the cost is after you've written it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now we have a look at that. I'll say done. Or can I just play it? Now it's rendering. Very quick.
Boy, it really is for a minute to render that fast.
Yeah. Now, again, the quality and hallucinations might be quality might be a little bit iffy. Hallucinations could be there. There we go. Okay, are we ready? Let's
Can you
see.
get an envelope format rather than
In this scenario,
No, that's another thing. So this one's limited to just this I don't know, iPhone looking thing. So yeah, this is kind of a funny. Go
Okay.
ahead. It's here. But okay, maybe I can. Oh, there we go. Just kidding. Learn something new. Okay.
Alex is part of the Space Communication Relay mission and has received feedback that their previous communication didn't clearly outline how a 2-week delay would affect the team's tasks. Now, Alex needs to update the team with a revised timeline and clear instructions to keep everyone aligned. The correct answer is option C. This response is the most effective because it clearly communicates the timeline adjustment and offers proactive next steps. By promising an updated schedule and inviting feedback on any potential issues, Alex ensures that each team member understands exactly how the delay impacts their responsibilities. This is a great example of clear and precise internal communication that fosters team alignment and trust.
Good one. Okay.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
if there was a couple of frames in there of like the overview of a city and you didn't want that, could you go in and edit this tape or this
Yeah.
recording?
Yeah. So I would just click keep editing here. And then in this area, you have, for those of you that are familiar with video editing, there's a little timeline down here. You can click, oh goodness, this thing keeps silly Max. You can click these items here, these images, and let me go there. And let's say I don't want a satellite, I want to move something out. You can always replace that and modify this as needed, which is kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So if you didn't like the music, you could lay down a different music bed as well.
yeah,
You could
yeah.
add images, you could do all sorts of things. I mean, if you wanted to have the president of your organization saying something or the CFO, you could, upload pictures of that person and tell it to use that person and animate their voice.
Yeah, yep, definitely. Again, check with your governance groups to make sure, everything's compliant, but yes, that capability is there and available. And that's something, again, you're personalizing to your audience that would probably resonate with them rather than some of the generic images that you're seeing here. So
Underneath the image, it says tall portrait. Can you change, there's a drop down there. Can you change that to
let's see.
something that's not tall? Well,
Maybe.
It seems like you ought to be able to.
There we go.
There you are.
Oh, thanks, Carla. Didn't see that drop down before.
Yeah, I mean, nobody in a, professional would load up something that looked like a tall, whatever.
Yeah. Unless it's going straight to TikTok or something or
Oh,
Instagram. But yeah, this is so this is our video generator that we made from our space training for project management today. Okay, well, so going back to my point, this can be such a fantastic tool that you'll need to check playing around with this and stuff. This is something where you'll want to go through and check, just like we did with the other visuals. Is there any hallucinations? Is anything strange that we're seeing? That kind of thing. So you want to double check all this, but otherwise, this looks a little odd, but yeah, otherwise, this is a really great ideation tool and prototyping method.
I'm gonna play it again, and so we can look at it a second time and just see what it did in this format. Have you got time to do that?
We sure do. Go ahead and press play.
In this scenario, Alex is part of the Space Communication Relay mission and has received feedback that their previous communication didn't clearly outline how a 2-week delay would affect the team's tasks. Now,
Get rid of
Alex
those
needs to
deadlines.
update the team with a revised timeline and clear instructions to keep everyone aligned. The correct answer is option C. This response is the most effective because it clearly communicates the timeline adjustment and offers proactive next steps. By promising an updated schedule and inviting feedback on any potential issues, Alex ensures that each team member understands exactly how the delay impacts their responsibilities. This is a great example of clear and precise internal communication that fosters team alignment and trust.
Okay, so the closed captioning in the middle of the screen is annoying. I wonder why it's doing that way.
I don't know. It is something you can move.
Oh, well, that would help.
Yeah. I also don't know about the icons they use. So that'd be, again, something to play with. So they're a little bit random. But yeah, there's some options there. But
It's just amazing that it did all of that in less than 5 minutes.
I know. Yes, it's definitely good for compliance.
Yeah, but it ought to be an option,
Mm-hmm.
or, if you don't want to hear it, or if you don't
Yeah.
want to see it, you
Yeah,
ought to be
if you
able to
wanna-
turn off the audio and turn on, who knows? I mean, it's just a question, but definitely 508 compliance is so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, you're right, Jana. So when you click the text, you can go in. I don't know how much. That's really, yeah. So you'll have to, that's another thing too. When you're in these things, oh, here we go. This is where you can edit it if you want to. Okay. Okay, but yeah, I'm gonna go down another rabbit hole. I'm gonna stop now, but this is something.
So you can edit what she's saying.
Yes, yeah,
That's great.
yeah, on this side here. And she's the automated, so yeah, she'll read with us ever here. And it has highlighted confidences where it needs to verify something. You can add more subtitles, so yeah, lots of options. Okay, so we saw all kinds of ways to prototype using generative AI. We created some scenario-based questions, a learner journey. We did a lot of interesting visuals, and then we also were able to create a video. I want to hear from all of you. What was most helpful, and what are some ideas you have for your organization? Is there anything that you would do differently? I'll give you a moment to think about that and share your thoughts in the chat. If it's not differently in an organization, maybe something you want to try in your groups.
I think the ability to add the video is such an important thing. And, last month we did Copilot to create slideshows. I think that, there's so many things that we're going to be able to do. I mean, a lot of the production I used to do at Capella, I wasn't able to do video. I had to do voiceovers, or I invited industry people or authors of books to come into the class, and I would record essentially a podcast with them because I didn't have the funding to do the video. With mechanisms like this, it completely changes what you're able to do in the course room, any course. And, all you've got to do is pay up to get a decent chat, get a decent AI.
Yeah,
You got stuff coming in you want to start it.
I do. So more specifics on incorporating 508 compliance and gamification design. That's great call out. Grouping the entire product and how you built it was very helpful. I'm glad to hear that. Ideas, creativity, a lot of voiceover. Good. I'm glad the videos and images, they do resonate. Those are really, really great. Yes. And you can copy and paste those into PowerPoint as your prototype. If you want to just say, hey, here's what I'm thinking for a quiz. I'll export this video out. I'll embed it. I'll put some images in there. That's another option. I agree. The video generation is super impressive. Yeah, so software, I recommend working. I love working in this ChatGPT space. If I go over, remembering where you go is always a thing. So I go to openai.com. Let's see. So if I could do this. openai.com. Okay. There's a whole bunch of stuff to explore where you can kind of play around and see what's out there. And then if I go into ChatGPT, I can't remember if they call it like a mall or something, where you can see all of the different types of GPT tools. So I think oh, here we go. Explore GPTs. There we go. So there's all kinds of them. You have a code tutor, diagrams, resume builder. What's trending here? You have some Canva might be familiar. Image generator is what we use today. Logos, scholars. So yeah, this is one of those things. Dolly is very, very popular as well. There's so much, it's actually overwhelming here, but it's something to go in and go play with and go explore. So yeah, so LMS with Articulate. I know Articulate 360 is going to be, they have a trial with generative AI that they're working on now. And they're starting to throw that out to their different clients and stuff like that. So that could be something to explore, because they have their own little bots and things that they're doing for their design, which is really exciting. Yeah, so that's another point, is going and exploring, with the design tools that you have, if you're working in that space, see what's coming and what's available already. There might be some AI trial pieces that are based off of that generative AI technology. And then on your free time, I recommend going in here and playing around with these different GPT tools. I have not had a chance to go through all of these, but yeah, let me know if you see something interesting. So going on to our next piece, because I am all over the place with rabbit holes today, is our certificate assignment. This is an optional exercise for you to take what we learned today, put it to practice on your own. You'll be reviewing a scenario, and you'll be choosing your own scenario that works for you, whether it's in a list of scenarios that I'll provide in the assignment, or if you want to use something from your own organization that you're kind of just noodling through, you can do that. And then you'll be building out, oh, this isn't quite, well, anyway, you'll be building out what we did today, that full context, and figuring out a prototype for it. And then it'll ask for a variation on the prototype, whether it's rewriting it with a theme or adding different gamified elements or something like that. So just so you can see those variations, and then sharing that mock-up. And it could be a copy and paste of the text that you created, kind of like what we were seeing here today, right here. So it could be a copy and paste of something like this, that's fine. Or if you want to get, go explore and see what else is out there and copy and paste some images into the PowerPoint file and see how that experience is, you can do that as well. And then you'll email that back to me. You have until December 31st. So lots of time to play and explore with that. And again, that's totally optional in case you'd like a certificate that is available to you. And I can put the assignment PowerPoint in to our chat, I think. Let me go ahead and try that now. And there'll also be a link to it on our website that's coming soon. So let me go ahead and
Yeah, probably at
open.
this point, better to download it. Or if you can't download it, you can send me an email and I'll send it to you. carlalane@aol.com. No laughing at AOL.
Sorry. Let's see here.
I've had that since before all of you were born. So.
Yes, actually, you know what? I'm going to put my email in here as well. So if you have any trouble, you can always reach out to me at this email as well. They check in that. Oh, we got a Yahoo user here. So that's good. Oldie but good. I think my
When there's
mom's
a
still on.
Hotmail.
Yeah, I got I got family that's still on Hotmail for sure. So hey, whatever works, if it's still kicking.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Any other questions or comments?
Okay, I was able to download it, so
Okay.
if you want it, it's there. You should be able to download it from the chat.
Mhm.
The assignment.
Oh, yeah, and I do want to call out, it's gonna look like this. Of course, I can't, there we go. And you'll have where you can copy and paste in here. If you don't like working in PowerPoint, you'd rather do this in Word, that is fine. It's totally fine. Whatever you can email to me, I'll take it. So totally fine on the format. I'll give you some feedback just in case it's helpful for you. And if you're like, what in the world is this? How am I supposed to do this? You can always look starting on slide 15. There's an example of a filled out version. So you can always just check that and review that if you need any direction there. And if you have any additional questions, feel free just to reach out to me via email. I'm happy to help. So, all right. With that, I'll stop sharing. Oh, wait, no, I won't. I'm going to go over here and the last slide for
A few
FG.
minutes later, any questions you all want to put into the chat, or we can take people off of, you can speak up if you want to.
Good. I'm so glad. I'm glad that was helpful for everyone. It's a fun space to play.
Yeah, what we try to do with the webinars and workshops is to bring things to you all that you can use immediately, so that you really, it's not just an overview, it's much more detail. And Jenny's work in this has just been exceptional. She's been into this. Her doctoral work was on gamification, and so she's truly an expert in it. And with all of her instructional design background, and particularly with where you're working, Jenny, what you're able to bring to such an enormous organization as United Healthcare. I mean, it's really a wonderful thing. And they're so lucky to have you. I'm so glad that they got you. So everyone is just saying what a great presentation, and I agree so much. So Jenny, thank you. We really appreciate it. Russ, great seeing you and being here today, and glad you survived the hurricane. He lives in Tampa Bay, so a little bit of cleanup, but he says his house is built on stilts or something. but it's 15 feet above whatever came into there. So we're so glad that you're okay. And anybody else who was in the middle of that hurricane, we hope you're all right as well.
Thank you, Carla.
Okay, we're so glad to have that you're okay, Russ. I was really worried about you. And Jenny's in Miami, so we've got a bunch of people that are in those areas, so we're worried about all of you. So we want to thank all of you for joining us today, and to COSO Cloud again, and Zoom and Moodle for working with us in so many ways. We hope to see you on November 13th, when DAU's Brenda Sedlak will present a webinar about how to really produce a quality webinar. So be sure to register for that, when we'll be getting the flyers out on that very quickly. And that concludes today's webinar. Jenny, thank you for a fantastic piece. We really appreciate it. That concludes the webinar. Thank you all for being here.